The government and opposition were both claiming a win today after reaching a compromise on the so-called Omnibus Bill, saving $6 billion for the budget. It was a rare bright spot of agreement in a day dominated by, you'll be surprised to hear, more disagreement. This time over how to move forward on the issue of same-sex marriage, even though both party leaders want it. The coalition's announced the terms of a plebiscite set for the 11th of February, but Labor says that's a bad idea. In a moment, I'll be joined from Canberra by the Shadow Treasurer Chris Bowen, but first here's political correspondent Sabra Lane.
The only person that stands in the way of Australians having a vote on this issue on the 11th of February is Bill Shorten. Mr Shorten should stop blocking this democratic process for which we have a clear mandate from the public.
Let me be unequivocal. I think the plebiscite is a bad idea.
Rainbow families protested outside Parliament against the plebiscite just before the Coalition Party Room met to thresh out the details of the vote, already signed off by Cabinet. Bill Shorten just happened to bump into the group on his morning jog, later giving his strongest signal yet that Labor will reject the bill when it's introduced this week.
We all know he's voting against his own conscience on this issue. We all know that the Conservative Abbott faction are calling the shots. So when you say, is there anything which he could do to convince us? He can't even convince his own people.
I think it's important to realise that just blocking the plebiscite and attacking the coalition will not achieve marriage equality. What we need is everybody to put down their armour and start working together.
The proposed question is now clear. Should the law be changed to allow same-sex couples to marry? 2 advertising committees will be set up to run the yes and no campaigns. Each will be given $7.5 million. The committees will each be made up of 5 MPs, 2 from the government, 2 from Labor and a crossbencher. The other 5 positions will be chosen from advocate groups, similar to the Republican referendum.
The process that we've established, the architecture of this plebiscite, is completely even-handed. Everybody is entitled to precisely the same funding. The question is fair and even-handed. This is a completely level playing field.
During the Coalition Party Room meeting, about a dozen MPs spoke. 3 raised concerns about taxpayers funding the advertising campaigns. Liberal Senator Dean Smith has reserved his right to abstain or cross the floor. The fate of the plebiscite now rests with Labor. It won't take a final position until it sees the legislation and reviews it at its next scheduled caucus meeting in October. The government's ratcheting up its rhetoric against Bill Shorten, preparing to blame him should the bill fail.
There will be a plebiscite on the 11th of February unless Bill Shorten decides to block it. Now, what he should do is get behind this commitment to democracy. He knows that most Australians including most Labor voters, are in favour of there being a plebiscite. Australians want to have their say. We've set up a fair process so that it will be a fair go for both sides of the argument. Let the people have their say.
It is Mr Shorten who is saying to gay Australians, you can just wait while I play politics.
It will be Bill Shorten who breaks the hearts of same-sex attracted couples and their families in Australia if he opposes the same-sex marriage plebiscite, not Malcolm Turnbull. He's put forward a credible pathway, a reasonable pathway, give Australian people a chance to have their say. I think it's a fair way of dealing with a very tough issue, and I think we should just get on with it, have the vote and let the Australian people decide.
What do you say to those critics and to Labor MPs who say to the Prime Minister you should just dump this plebiscite, allow a free vote, that this is an option for achieving same-sex marriage in this parliament?
Well, Bill Shorten and the Labor Party don't get to choose which promises we keep and which promises we're not allowed to keep. We went to the election with a clear commitment to hold a plebiscite. I think the majority of Australians actually want to have the chance to have their say, and it's the fairest way to deal with the issue. Now, I'm not saying that we want to be doing this on a regular basis, but this has been an issue where the Parliament has struggled to deal with it conclusively over many, many years. I've been in the Parliament 8 years and hasn't been able to deal with the issue, and it's kept on coming back. So in many regards, I think this is the fairest way. The Australian people want to have their say.
Among the protest group at Parliament this morning was 13-year-old Eddie, who became a focus in question time.
Can the Prime Minister explain why Eddie should have to put up with a $7.5 million campaign by people who've never met him, telling him that there's something wrong with his family.
Eddie will understand that everything we do here in this parliament is designed to ensure that Australia becomes an even better place for him to grow up in and realise his dreams. And in this respect, everything we do is about him and his generation. But, Mr Speaker, I'm very disappointed that the Deputy Leader of the Opposition would use Eddie, take advantage of Eddie's presence.
There's nothing wrong with us. We're the exact same, like we do the exact same stuff that everyone else does. Just because I've got two mums or all the other families have like two mums or two dads, doesn't mean that we're different. It doesn't mean that we can't do stuff. And it doesn't affect anyone in any way, I don't think.
While Labor is hanging tough on the plebiscite, it's come to the party on budget repair, following several weeks of careful negotiations on the budget omnibus bill. It had to, or face accusations of walking away from its election commitments and opening itself up to the claim it wasn't prepared to make difficult economic decisions. Success, it said, has 1,000 fathers. Today, both major parties were claiming to be the winners in negotiating a breakthrough.
Labor has secured significant amendments to the government's omnibus bill.
Now, we said we will work across the aisle. We will make and seek to ensure that the parliament works and that we get results.
It is a much-needed win for the government, with $6 billion in budget savings set to sail through parliament. But both major parties had to give ground. Labor's agreed some welfare payments for families on more than $80,000 a year will go, arguing it spared others with much less. The government has kept some carbon tax compensation payments, and the Nationals have sacrificed a prized policy, the baby bonus.
Well, it's a sign of the difficult economic times we're faced with. We are undergoing a difficult task of budget repair. We have to get serious about the issue of budget repair, and unfortunately in this case for the National Party it's been a policy area that we were very supportive of in the past, and we haven't been able to sustain it in terms of the current budgetary environment.
Today's pot of gold in the 45th Parliament, bipartisanship on budget repair. On same-sex marriage, like a rainbow, it's still out of reach.
And the Shadow